three stories about three separate abduction murder cases, presumed and murder cases in number two. First, I want to tell you about the experience of going to Knoxville, Tennessee, and traveling down there. And if you know the whole story, I'm going to put the link below so you can watch the full documentary on Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom. Christopher played baseball and was 23. Shannon was 21 at the time of their murders. Shannon was repeatedly raped and tortured for hours inside the Chipman house that where she had died after being stuffed in a garbage bag. And then Christopher was murdered and burned and shot three times. So when we would share these stories, each of them have a unique story. This case is the story of Pizzagate. Now, I asked some people about this case. It's still very unclear what happened to what we call this little girl, Megan, and she's being taped down, and it was called a conspiracy. There's more to that story. And we're going on to talk about this story and other stories like it. I personally have asked questions about this, and I want to also thank the Lunsford Foundation for allowing me to be a representative of the Jessica Lunsford Foundation. This is the band. If you would like to find out more about this, again, I'll put more information below. Tell you a little bit about my getting familiar with the Jessica Lunsford story. Jessica was 9, almost 10 years, I think she was 10 years old. This is one of the better pictures. They had been at a fair, and Jessica had a dolphin. Mark Lunsford, who has pursued new legislation and tracking releasing of offenders, has now created Jessica's Law because of what happened to Jessica. I don't need to tell you the story that John Huey had abducted Jessica, and there was two relatives that also hid information that also were arrested. Jessica had died. She was tricked into getting into a garbage bag. She suffocated in a small 2-by-5 hole where John Huey had prior raped her repeatedly. It was Mark Lunsford, little girl, who had died at the hands of a sex offender. These stories and more. The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. Each of those cases that we were talking about, we personally visited some of those cases. One I had, like I said earlier, I had traveled to Knoxville to find out if there was a memorial. I was so taken back by that story. This is before, of course, I knew anything about the story, but you go in to a neighborhood or a town like that, it's changed by that story, and you could tell by the documentary. In 2009, I became a representative of Jessica Lunsford Foundation. I am gradually, slowly learning to cope with the loss of Jessica. And I have to tell you, this happened to my family too. The difference is they were okay and they're safe. They're safe today. I feel like if I get the opportunity to meet Mark Lunsford personally, I don't know what I would say. I know that every one of these cases is important. We don't know about the status of all the cases, so that you know, we're not experts, we're regular people. But we, the people, when we make a decision to support Jessica's Law or Megan's Law, we, the people, make it a top priority. That's why we write letters. We write letters to legislators. And when you see legislation as effective as Jessica's Law, you know something has changed. Jessica's story has changed the way missing persons cases are processed now and how offenders are tracked. So what Jessica went through, and it's very hard to even try to understand how to, there's no way to replace Jessica. The only good thing that could come out of all this is that they can track and trace other offenders like John Cooey. And I don't, and that's still a very big stretch after you see those images. So think about the things that we're asking all of you to do when you take a little time out of your schedule. And if there's a way to make our neighborhood safer, a block parent program, or other ways to do this so that this does not happen ever again. I almost think that a lot of people it became ignorant. And when you have children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews, you cannot afford to be ignorant. A block parent program that would be able to rescue children or even in a lot of cases now adults being abducted. And I prepared you early because I know that there's a lot of people that would somehow couldn't happen to you or me or someone. I think of every scenario, and I think of like hospitals, doctors, places, but most of the time it's in a shallow grave and one that's unmarked, and that's typically where we find these stories. And we want you to be wise and sharp and smart, that if you were working with a crew, that you would contact the Department of Corrections or the Sheriff's Department in your area, in your region, to be a part of a search crew, to do the things that most people don't know how to do unless you're trained. Please contact 911 if you ever hear of a story of children going missing or adults going missing. The epidemic of child sexual abuse is increasingly worse than it's ever been, at least from what we're hearing. So contact 911. I know this personally, that we didn't understand to call the police, but the police got there because I ran to the police station, literally. I ran to my uncle's, and he contacted the police officers when this happened to me in 1985. Our stories are very similar, and there's a lot of people that have been through very similar matters, so it's best to just contact 911 and don't hesitate. Don't explain yourself. Call 911. Thank you. And that's hashtag just